Okay, welcome to my Porsche 911 SC 1979 project. It doesn't look too good right now. It will look better, but still, this interior I think is pretty cool. It needs some work, as you can see. These bezels have been hand painted red by the previous owners. I don't like that. I'm gonna have to return that to a black finish, as it would be fairly close to stock. That's pretty easy to do because these dials all come out with a little bit of muscle work. They're just press fitted in with a rubber gasket. They will come out. With determination, you can get them out, as you can see. Now, behind there, you can see all the wiring. They don't have modern connectors, so you have to really make sure that you label all the wires. If you're going to take the gauges out, you've got to label all the wires very carefully in order to get them back in the proper position, because they can fit in multiple positions. As you can see, they don't have the modern connectors which only go one way on modern cars. So I'm going to take them all out, repaint or refinish these to the black finish. That's no big deal. The steering wheel. Let's see if you can see this. I'm going to push the steering wheel up and down. Can you see that? The whole steering wheel moves up and down. That's very disconcerting as you're driving down the road. But there's a bearing inside there, a plastic bearing from original Porsche that has to be replaced. That is going to be done. You got to take the steering wheel off, and the steering wheel comes off pretty easy. I'll show you the first part of replacing that bearing right now. This just comes off with determined pull. I've already got these areas loose, one more area, and it will pull off. See, those are just press fit over those plastic bushings, and that's how it goes on. Also, there's a connector that goes to for your horn right there. That's already come off. Now you've got to remove that large nut and washer, and then the whole steering wheel will just come off. Now, it's a good idea to mark the position of the steering wheel before you take it off with just like a magic marker or some permanent marker, so that you'll be able to get it so that it's straight when you put it back on. Now, this nut is an unusual size. It's 27 millimeter. So you may have to buy a special socket and extension to get that off. So like I said, you'll need a 27 millimeter socket and extension to loosen this. Now, sometimes these nuts are on with a lot of torque, and you don't want to use the stops on the steering rack. Although that might seem like that will stop everything from moving, it's better not to do that, because you can actually wreck your rack and pinion steering rack in the old Porsches. So there's a better way to do it. Okay, I'm using a wheel club that I have. I'm going to put this in the steering wheel. Okay, so the club's installed. And you need a breaker bar. Now, you may not need a breaker bar quite this big, but everybody needs a breaker bar. You got to have a breaker bar, right? Anyway, so what you're going to do is that you're going to hold on to the club with one hand, hold on to the breaker bar, and bring them together. That will unloosen that nut. And you'll do that. The only thing to make sure is to make sure you don't go anywhere near your front windshield. You don't want to break that. You really don't want to break that. So that will remove that nut without stressing your rack and pinion. There you go. Okay, I've loosened the nut, and that comes right off now. Yeah. Right off. Okay, now hopefully your steering wheel is not too tight. Mine is not too tight. It comes right off. And there you go. Now you have access to rebuilding these switches if you need to, or in my case, getting to this bearing to replace it, because this is loose. Now another thing I'd like to do in my Porsche project is to get rid of this 90s style stereo, although it does sound good, with something that looks more classic with the this era of Porsche, right? So I'm going to do that. I've got to fix the wiring, tidy that up. I've got to fix the carpeting, but I also have to make the shifter work better. Right now, shifter bushings are worn out. I've got to get to that. So that's basically, you got to remove the console, if your Porsche has the console, to get access to the shifter and to replace the bushings. Also, at the back, as you may or may not know, you can remove a plate right in front of the rear seats here and get access to your shifter rod right here as well. That's also another area where you can replace bushings and also do adjustment. But right now, let's remove the console. Now I've already taken apart part of the console, but I just wanted to go over a few things. In all the books, it just says remove the console, but actually that's not as easy as it looks. Porsche back in the 70s didn't actually make things easy to remove. Anyway, the first thing you're going to do is remove, if you have the console, is to remove your back cover. This goes at the back of the console. Once you remove that back cover, which is removed with a couple of simple screws on each side, you will expose the mounting points for the console. One mounting point there with a screw, one mounting point there with another screw, and a third screw below the carpet at the back of the console. Okay, so in this case I have removed that screw, and in this case I had to really carefully pull up the carpet and sort of push it back in order to expose where. I also had to remove my little defrost indicator here from the carpet. Anyway, if you don't want to rip the carpet, you have to just work at it slowly and carefully to get the carpet pushed back so you can expose the screw, which is right about there. Then you remove that, which I already have in this case, and your console's ready to go up. Up, but no, it's not ready to go up. You've got to remove these two knobs, which just pull off. Now there's quite a wiring harness attached to the back of these two switches, and when you try to remove the console, it won't go. So you've got to, in my case, what I did is I removed these two grommets, metal grommets, and using a screwdriver and a small hammer, you start tapping them at their slots right there and start moving them in a anti-clockwise direction, and if you're careful you can do it, hopefully without scratching your console. These rotate until they're loose, and then they just come right off, come right off, come right off, and then the switches will go in there. Then you can remove your plastic cover. Plastic cover comes off then. Oh, by the way, some of the screws on the side also hold this plastic cover in. Then you have your two switches, and they can be fed out through the hole in the back, and then you can remove your console. Okay, after you've got the console out, see there's the two switches hanging out of a wiring harness that comes out of the floor. You have to get to 3 bolts, actually more than 3 bolts, but anyway, you got to get to these bolts that hold this, but there's carpet glued right over these bolts. Right over these bolts. So what I did is that I sliced the carpet slightly. I sliced the carpet so I could get access. Now this carpet is going to be covered by the console, so that's okay. I got access to these 3 bolts. This big bolt is the main bolt that holds the back of the shifter on. It's in position, and these 3 bolts hold a bracket that holds the shifter rod. All 3 bolts have to be removed there, and then 2 bolts in the front. This one's already been loosened. These are all Allen head bolts, by the way. So you have to have a set of Allen bits to get rid of these bolts. That one's already loose, took that out. This one's already out, already got that out. So the 2 front bolts are out. Then, as you can see, I did have to cut the carpet up to here. Then you can remove your shifter. Now you can remove the boot if you can take your shifter knob off. My knob will not come off, so I'm just leaving it on. And all you gotta do is grab it and pull up. Now, one of the bushings I'm going to replace is a bushing that goes right around there. And this is it. This is highly worn out. Just goes on right there. It's very much worn out. So that's going to improve my shifting quality by replacing this bushing. Also, see that's where that cup goes, is right in there. There's other bushings that can also be replaced. For example, this bracket, see that's where all the bolts were going through, can now be moved. There's a bushing right there, that plastic bushing. I'm going to remove that, and that will also help the shifter, the shifter in this car. So I just thought I'd show you a little bit of a few pointers on how these things are removed. It's definitely still a work in progress, but I think it's going to look pretty good when I'm all done. I'm hoping I'll have it all ready for Father's Day. So thanks for watching Photomikes Garage.